Greetings, friends and family. Welcome to another edition of Just Reasoning Live, the show where we talk about things of relevance to our community, our Caribbean community, our Black community. You know, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Right here on Facebook, facebook.com/mysoulrebel. A lot of things going on, so a few things that we need to discuss. We're down a man tonight. So it's, me and my partner Tex tonight. We're going to reason and talk things. Youth, where you going? Your video gone. I don't know. All right, you're back. All right, yeah. So my name is Chris, C-Dub, Soul River Production, mysoulrebel.com. Brother, what's that going?
What? Yeah, long week, but we're here. Thankful to be here. Dwayne, Two Tex, CFO, Soul River Productions, and the fashion icon. Get at me.
Big up our sponsors, D&G.
D&G.
Introduce all your sponsors.
Red Stripe.
Who else?
Appleton.
Appleton. So Appleton, D&G. Hold on. Link up.
Yeah.
Let's talk. All right, so we have a few topics to discuss. We're going to go in depth on a few things, but before we go in depth on that, we're just going to run through a few topics, just like current events of kind of what's going on. Mainly what's going on, everybody know, coronavirus, COVID-19 kind of mashed up the place. It has been, in existence since like December,
that we know of.
Yeah, that we know of. People didn't really take it seriously. I'm looking at you, Mr. Trump, I'm still not taking it seriously. But the lockdown stuff started like around March, and it's still going on. And kind of what has happened lately, even though nothing has changed regarding the news, nothing has changed regarding the amount of cases, the number of people getting infected. But people seem to just be tired of living out a quarantine life and just going on like everything is normal. So as you'd expect, things start picking up again. So that's an issue that we have to deal with, and it's having an impact. And the first issue that we'll talk about here in a little bit, just the impact that it's having on business, right? The business that we are most familiar with, the entertainment business. So we can speak to that directly. Obviously, more than anything, what matters is life. Without life, you don't have anything. But people's livelihoods are impacted. So that's something to, that we have to, deal with. Tex, what do you say?
Definitely. Being in the promotion game, a lot of our friends are promoters. A lot of our friends are club owners. And this is their sole source of income, sole source of revenue, and they're hurting, right now. So it's a fine line between our health and bringing business back. So it's just going to take a fine balance in order to get us back to a new normal, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's you phrase it correctly, and that's such I don't we can talk a lot about our governor and the bad decisions he made and what have you, and the mayor, but yeah, it's a no-win situation for them, for people in that position, because you as a leader of a community, you depend on tax revenue, you depend on businesses thriving, and so you want to balance that. But more than anything comes people's lives, and if that is impacted, it's going to make the economic impact worse. So it's like we've been trying to thread the needle, and trying to balance under both things, and not really going hard on the lockdown. Like in South Korea and China and whatever, when the lockdown first started, they went all out. Harsh measures, lockdown, everything. We're not that dictatorship yet anyway, so we couldn't do some of those things, but they were able to handle this thing, and people were able to, not, it's still there, but there's a reason why we have the worst outbreak in the world. And I saw somebody sent a meme today that said the reason why the U.S. Is having such a difficult time is that the U.S. values individualism, what the individual can do, versus collectivism, where what's good for the whole. I want to get my nails done, and I don't want to wear a mask because I know I'm not sick, even though you may be asymptomatic. Yeah, so therefore you go out and you may impact somebody or not. That's why we have 2 million at last count number of cases, 120,000 people dead. That's in a future episode. I wish we had somebody who was in the nursing profession who do you know anyone?
Well,
we could discuss these things with.
I just might. We need to book her.
Yeah, we definitely need to book. If you happen to know one, that's
I think I can come up with.
You think you maybe have to get one? Right. Anyway, so that's that. Corona matching up the world. But we press on. And so in actually related to that, the NBA is supposed to be coming back. I haven't really watched I don't really watch sports news. I watch sports, and since no sports have been on, I don't know what's really going on in sports news. But I heard they were trying to come back and come up with a format where they could still play without fans and all in one city. What is the update? What are they trying to do? And do you know the status of that? I don't know.
Well, what they're trying to do is basically get 22 teams in a bubble. But the pushback is coming from players in the fact that they're putting they don't want to put their families at risk, their loved ones, their spouses and things like that, and the amount of time that they're going to be away from them. Because once you basically get in the bubble, there's no coming out, you're not leaving until you basically get eliminated or, win a championship. So there's a lot of pushback there. Now, I see the reasoning on both sides that, a lot of players do want to play. And again, the reasoning there is mainly economic and entertainment value. Plus, competitors, they want to play. They want to play, they want to see it through. They want to see, who's the better team at the end of the year and, hoist a trophy. On the other hand, you have people that are thinking, okay, look here, I'm not putting my family's life in jeopardy, for this, because even though you're in a contained bubble, the players are the ones that are in the contained bubble. The workers are not. They are able to come and go, not as they please, but during their shift. So there's no telling, what they could bring back, and that's not a controlled environment as far as I'm concerned. So it's hard. It's a hard balance all the way around.
Yeah, and it's and so most times when we think about something like that, like a decision to bring back the NBA or whatever, we're thinking about the player, and we're like, oh, they have millions of dollars, it doesn't matter. But when you think about like who is hurt the most during this, think of all the people who work these games, whether from parking lot attendants, the people who sell beer and peanuts and what have you. Those people are hurting during such a time. As we said, what matters most to life, but the business impact, cannot be overlooked. I saw an interview with a guy, a black guy who is I think he's like the head of like data science for Yelp. And so, Yelp, a review site, they have a certain angle of, the amount of businesses that are, being shut down. A few places that, me and, my family go to regularly, we've tried, go by there in the past week or so, and, they're shut down. And so I think he said like nationally, there are, I think he said like about 143,000 businesses, small businesses, from nail shops to small restaurants, that have closed. Some of them are like temporary closures, where they just need to shut down for a while. And others, I think you said like about 20% of those indicate that they're going to be permanent closure, right?
Yeah.
So, this is going to have a real ripple impact throughout society in ways that we're not even envisioning right now. We're talking, Great Depression type numbers. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So,
and I can speak to it from another angle too. I know we were talking about restaurants and bars and clubs and things like that, but from the transportation industry has really been hit as well. One of the industries I'm part of is black car service, and that's dependent on airlines. That's dependent on people taking flights, business class, and the industry has gone down 95%. You have companies that did 100 trips a day that are doing 1 or maybe 2 a day. And with that said, I mean, you basically have to strip your staff down to, 2 or 3 people. I mean, because you don't need all the cars. You're probably renting a facility, that's 10,000 square feet to house these cars that you're not using. So a lot of these companies are trying to, as you say, just kind of float until this passes. But financially, a lot of these businesses operate on a cash basis, just cash flow, cash in, cash out. And if the cash isn't coming in, they're not able to sustain, the lights. So the companies that are able to sustain, I will say at the end of this will come out on top, because a lot of these companies, and you mentioned 20%, I know a lot of the companies in the transportation industry, especially in the US, are closing, mom and pops, because, they can't keep the lights on. Business isn't there. So prayers out to them.
Yeah, and and so that kind of brings to mind, like, a lot of this stuff is, there may be some temporary impacts, but for a lot of this, these are going to be permanent changes in our economy. Because when you look at it, a lot of, for my, other job, my 9 to 5, like my 9 p.m. to 5 p.m., not my 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., which is what this is. I travel a lot, right? Normally. And, that's something that we had to do in that business, technology sales, basically. So now, business is going on. We're still doing our thing. And what people are realizing that, you do not have to do all this traveling. And
Exactly.
so people are going to really, travel on and just
that budget is going to be the
basis.
first one to be. That's going to be the budget that's going to be the first one to be cut after this.
Oh yeah.
Why spend the money when they have Zoom?
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's just as effective.
Yeah,
No hotel, no flight, no car.
And so you think about, just the ripple effect of that throughout industry, on the airline, on the rental car business. I mean, Hertz filed bankruptcy.
Oh my God.
On the hospitality industry, hotels. I mean, I've been in a hotel since February. I used to be in one almost every week. You know what I mean? So a lot of these changes are going to be permanent. And also in the commercial real estate business, a lot of people realize we don't need all this office space. We'll keep a floor or two, but we don't need these 10 floors. We'll have people work from home and what have you, and work it out and save money there.
Another big change there, having people work from home is a big thing right now. Work from home jobs have gone up at least 30%. I read the other day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I work from home normally anyway, but but I normally travel. But so it just, I don't think we really realize the impact that this is going to have. Like I said before, the ripple effect through industries. But within that, something to think about. There are going to be opportunities created.
Definitely so.
So there's some major companies that were started during the last 2 significant downturns, like in the economic crisis of 2008 or in the dot-com crash. Because, once people selling and everything, people are looking to swoop in and try a new thing. You know what I mean?
Get in where you fit in.
Last is a quick topic. Buju Banton, Gargamel.
Driver.
For what? 10 years? How long was Buju in jail? 10 years? Something like that. Yeah. As a new album dropping this Friday. One of my favorite artists of all time. Probably go down in history as the best dancehall artist of all time, I think. He is the dancehall equivalent of, anyway, so Buju dropping a new album on Friday. So, this is a layup question. Do you think he still got it?
Oh man, so okay. I'm part of the music industry as well. Shout out Live Music, my boy Tim Ned, K Rich.
Oh, God, 13 drives. You must be a Jamaican.
Man, hold up. But I think he still has it. The problem I'm having with the music I'm hearing right now is the production. Okay, he's getting producers that are not in tune with his roots. Like I heard a song he did with Pharrell, and I was like,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Whoa! Who is this? If you happen to notice, our screen just got a much better looking. Kind of look like two customers on the screen. Special guest, introduce yourself. And we know our new guests, they always sing a song. So do that, introduce yourself.
What? I'm sorry.
On the spot.
Our new guests they normally sing a song. So sing a song.
Hi.
Who are you?
You see the name tag, right?
Who are you? I know who you are. Tell the people who you are.
Do you see what I put?
She went back.
Yeah, throwback.
And I got my long socks on. I have my long socks on too.
Oh, hey, they don't know about that.
Are your head top?
I was thinking it, but I wasn't gonna say it.
It's too much weight on the neck. No good. What's up, fellas?
Who are you?
What's up, Just Reasoning? How are you guys doing?
We're there, man. We're there.
A little backstory. Jasmine is the original host of Just Reasoning from back in the day.
Yeah, that's before she get rich and switch. And
now she's blown up. National radio show and stuff like that. She don't know about us no more.
Man, you guys are my family. You will always be my family, no doubt.
Okay.
You're the only event.
And which part of the Bahamas are you from again?
But I do have to give her a shout out because I literally contacted her like 2 minutes ago and she was like, sure. Like, well,
yeah. So we're
family.
Family. Hey, that's what friends and family do. So Golden is what we'll call her tonight. Has been family down with the Soul Rebel crew from way back when. Buju is dropping a new album on Friday after being on lock for 10 years. And Tex was talking about, go on. Take it from there, Tex.
Well, what I was basically saying is I think he still has it. The problem I'm having with the music I'm hearing is the producers he's using. He's using producers, real popular producers that have no attachment to the dancehall industry. So they don't know what to actually put out. They have an idea. I'm not gonna poop on anybody's, musical genius or what may have you, but for him to stay true, he needs to stay true to the producers that he came up with.
So is it safe to say, are you saying that the new sound is a little mainstream crossover-ish, you think?
Very, very mainstream. And I don't think he needs that to cross over. If he stays true to himself, it's going to translate regardless, because it translated before. So why change, the formula? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, me personally, I'll always be a Buju fan, but like I said, I heard a new production he did with Pharrell, and I was like, And even the one he did with Khaled, I was like, It had its moments, but.
Yeah, you know what? You said a few things just now that made me, without even thinking it, what you said just now kind of reflects what I was thinking, but I didn't even know I was thinking. Because, yeah. So I remember, you know, for those people of a certain age like myself, you know, when back in the, you know, like, I guess late 80s, when Shabba was mashing up the place.
Shabba.
Right?
What?
Absolutely mashing up the place on the Jamaican dancehall scene on a Jamaican label. Right? And then he signed a big contract with, I forgot what the company was, and he put out his first mainstream album. And I listened to it, I'm like, what is this nonsense? Because they're trying to, you know, make him fit in this box and be popular. But he was already popular here. You didn't have to mainstream up his style to make him fit, because people knew Shabba because of that original raw dancehall thing.
Exactly.
Doing the same thing.
That's what I'm talking about.
They fix it up. So, you know, it's the same thing with Buju. And I agree with you. I mean, you know, and again, it's like a balance thing, because you kind of want to, you know, leverage like who is hot today, you know, like Pharrell, like Khaled, you know, to try and get some of that crossover money from that angle. But I mean, if you just do your thing, people know who Buju is, then it's going to sell. But I get it. I think it's strictly, it's a business decision. It's not a music decision. You want to have the name of a Khaled and the name of a Pharrell to go on tour with. You know, I think John Legend. Yeah, and the song John Legend is kind of nice actually. But you know, stick to your thing. You know what I mean? But it's easier said than done. You might have to make money. You know.
I mean, the same thing that Buju did. Capleton did the same thing, and that album was mediocre. A couple of artists did the same thing. I mean, it wasn't until and Shaggy did the same thing.
You know, there's always in the industry a point where, you know, to sell records and all of that stuff, you're offered the silver spoon to, you know, cross over and do all of that. But, you know, especially with Buju and artists of his magnitude who has just been raw from beginning, you know, he can't afford, like, it's no way Buju should be crossing over at all.
Yeah, I mean, he has such an impact in the dancehall community that anything he does is going to catch on. I mean, we're talking about it right now, and you know, it hasn't even come out yet. So
what's the album? Upside
you know, he kind of has that green light.
What's it called? Upside Down, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I think it's Upside Down. It's dropping this Friday, so we'll see if it's upside down or not.
Upside down.
You know, so ideally, I hope it's not all a bunch of Khaled and Pharrell type music. I mean, you know, you got to put 2 or 3 tracks on there so you can put those on for those. And you know, these like millennials who don't know who Buju is will say, "Oh, okay, Pharrell has a new track. Who's this other guy? This Jamaican guy." You know what I mean? So I understand that, but I hope there's enough authentic, real roots. Because you think about that, as a conscious mind as Buju is, to be on lock for 10 years, you know the amount of lyrics that man must have written in those 10 years. So
and that's my point. Yeah.
He's supposed to come out like Tupac.
I know.
Yeah. Like a song a day, you know, should be coming out.
Thug Life text and everything. Yeah. Anyway, so that's this Friday. Buju's new album is coming. So we'll check it out.
Let's do a review of the album next week.
Yes, we'll do a review of the album, and we'll give it real and raw. And you know, Buju, pick up yourself. You know, you've done big things for dancehall, so we hope you keep carrying the flag and moving forward. Buju Banton being three best dancehall artists of all time. Big up Shabba too, but you just didn't do it long enough.
Not the teacher? You're not gonna add the teacher to it?
The teacher? Yeah.
Addy?
Yeah, you know. So which one we talking about? We're talking Black Cartel or Brown Cartel?
Black Cartel, what do you mean?
All right, yeah. So Black Cartel, that's the one we know.
Not the Bleachers.
Personally.
We vibe with Black Cartel. The Brown youth, we don't really know him. You know what I mean? So, but
shout out Father Kerry for that link.
For real, streets not seeing cartel again, but yeah, well, you know, I can't put him in an. I guess we can do a top 5 at some point. Would I put cartel in my top 5 of all time dancer? Or I guess you kind of have to. You know what I mean? He did the thing. You know, actually he's still doing it. But you know, we can't. You know, well, I mean, I said too much about his situation, but there are other. He's in the top 5.
In the wake of the murder of George Floyd, there's been a debate sparked about certain monuments, and that basically we have to make a decision on it, whether they're basically removed, preserved, or basically just taken down. I mean, we've seen many instances in the news in the last couple of days of just people taking to the streets and removing monuments. And I just want to get y'all take on that, how y'all feel about these monuments being taken down or removed. Now, I do want to add a point because I did some research, and a lot of these monuments are actually being taken down prior to them being physically removed by protesters, and they're being preserved to be put in museums and other different monuments, just being relocated. So I wasn't aware of that, so that was news to me. But how do y'all feel about that? What's your take on that?
You know, so I think the first thing I would say is when you think about the fact that we have lived in this country that has basically put up monuments, statues, and treasured the history of not only racists, but traitors to the country itself. Right? So yeah, I don't think there are all kinds of people in our history in the US history have been racist. But these were actually the Confederacy who they were traitors to the country. You know, they were trying to overthrow this government, right? And so the only legacy of that time period, I mean, I think the Confederacy was, lasted like less than 5 years. It's not like they had this long, illustrious history. So when you see people talk about, it's the pride of the South and this and that, no, it has nothing to do with just being proud of the South. They realize that something like the Confederate flag and the statues or whatever is an homage to, to racism. And when Black people were in their place, and we don't want to forget those times. So I think it is, I think it's a great thing. And it's not happening just here in the US. It's happening all over the world. Statues are getting heads knocked off all over the world. Belgium, England,
because Confederate generals advocated slavery and segregation. I mean, why would you want to leave something that represents that innate racism that's permeated through this country for years, for generations, for centuries? Why would, it's interesting again, because it might have a direct correlation or indirect correlation to things that have been happening with the George Floyd and Ahmaud and, all of these deaths, but it took the country unifying and getting fed up for these things for this to happen. Hey,
yeah,
why not?
Yeah, I mean, the simple reason of why is that because that's who this country is. That's who they've always been. There are many great things about the United States, or I wouldn't be here. But the bottom line is we still have to remember that this was a country that was founded on the genocide of the native population and was built by enslavement of Black Africans. It is that same country. And so, from, rotten root lead to rotten fruit. So a lot of these things that we're saying, that's just who the country is. And I saw somebody post something the other day. They're talking about the Confederacy. And they said, well, Satan is really important in the history of Christianity. But if you were to put up statues of Satan around your church, I would probably question your values. You know what I mean?
Good point.
So yes, it's a part of the story, But putting up monuments and statues, mean you put them on a certain level, meaning that you respected them and you honored what they do. We as a country respected them, and, so look, but
we as a country.
No. Well, the United States as a country. I was speaking from the standpoint of the typical American. Saying that this is part of the history of the country and they're honoring it. But it's there's a I hear a lot of people saying, and I agree with this, that in the aftermath of the George Floyd killing, we're asking for change in the policing, defund the police, as they say, or repurpose or reimagine them, and we're asking for all these things, and then okay, we'll take Aunt Jemima off the. We'll discontinue the Aunt Jemima brand, and doing all these things, we'll take down the statue, we'll paint Black Lives Matter, which have nothing to do with the underlying issue. I think these are positive steps for society in general. But as we knock down statues, as we rename Robert E. Lee schools to some other,
I was just
schools,
about to ask
have
that
to keep
question.
Focus on
Barack Obama
issue.
High.
It's the history of the country, but it's not a pleasant history. It's a very dark history. And it's something, that we need to.
It's the history that they want us to know. It's the history that they forced us to learn and know and respect. Yeah, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah, it is. It's commonly said that history is written by the winners, right? So the first time I knew, the first time I should have gotten back on the plane and gone right back to Jamaica was when I took U.S. history class. This was, I don't know what grade I was in, maybe like 6th, 7th grade, something like that. And the Marcus Garvey, who is one of our national heroes in Jamaica, when I'm reading in this U.S. history book how he was a con man, he was, a swindler, he did all these things to trick people into a Back to Africa movement to get their money. This was in the history books. When I came here, I was like, the same. It's supposed to be a different Marcus Garvey. It was supposed to be, Marcus Garvey from Acres Homes or something. It's not the Marcus Garvey I know. You know what I mean? So that's the history. They tell the history how they want you to know it. So a lot of the times that we're going through right now, wait to see how they. Well, I don't say wait. We need to be mindful of how they're going to try to rewrite history and be intimately involved in that process to make sure that the history is told as it should be. It's very important.
But the only way that that's going to happen, unfortunately, is if you have segregated schools that have their own curriculum. But HISD, I will say this, has
I forgot you're an educator.
HISD, no, don't remind me. HISD has actually implemented a Black Studies, course added to the curriculum. African American Studies course.
School name and everything. What's really going to be in it?
Exactly, and who wrote it? Yeah, I'm interested
exactly.
to know who did that.
Yeah, and so this was actually one of the topics I was going to talk about at the beginning, but I was just going to skip it. That's a very important. So we talk about history, and it is a reminder to all of us that we really have to be involved, not just in the education of our children, but in what goes on in our schools, and be active in school board meetings, right? So what brings to mind, many of you have seen that video. It's a viral video. This was in Baton Rouge. A man named Gary Chambers, I guess there was a motion up to rename a Robert E. Lee High School in Louisiana, to, some other name. And so, it's one of those meetings. I'm sure the school board, they people come and voice their concerns and they just do what they want to do and go about the business. In this particular meeting, this one lady who's on the school board she was on her laptop just shopping, going to
Shopping.
Amazon.
I
or
saw
whatever.
that.
Yes.
Yep.
I saw that.
And she probably thought, no big deal. I don't feel like hearing this, so she was shopping. What she didn't know that she was being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And so this brother, Gary Chambers, he goes up in front of the school board and he lets her have it. He's like, for this important issue, you're sitting here shopping, Connie. Connie Bernard is her name. And she still
walked out.
Connie, yes. So
she walked out.
he I mean, and that's the least of what he did, right? He not only called her out, he said, he commented on other people on the school board, and saying, that this is a really important issue, and he's sitting there shopping. And then he named some other names of like the first black governor of Louisiana during Reconstruction and what have you, and saying that these are the people, if you want to name the school after somebody significant, these are the people that you should consider naming the school after. And I'm not doing that speech justice, but you should look him up, Gary Chambers, Baton Rouge. And the important thing that comes out of that to me is, and what has happened since then, since he made this big viral speech, that man has been all over the place. He's been on CNN, he's been on MSNBC and what have you. And he's an activist. He's a minister also, but he's an activist. And he was saying that he's overwhelmed with the attention this has gotten because this is the work that he does on a daily basis. And it's nice to see that having an impact now. So we never know the impact that one strong voice in one small community can have. So we just have to be really involved with our schools, in our communities, and we have more power than we thought. This was one little man with a cell phone who posted this. Millions of people now know about the issue who are going to be tuned into what's going on. So we have to stay involved, in our, who's writing our history and what is being taught in our schools. It's very important. The next topic I have is around slave profits and those who profited from slavery. What responsibility do they have to our society today? So when we think about slavery, when we talk about slavery, for the most part, the focus is on the cruel, harsh, inhumane treatment of the slaves, of the industry of slavery itself. I certainly do. I can't speak for everybody, but I certainly do not think a lot about what the economic impact of it was. How many people it enriched. And so we have this misconception that it was just the slave traders in the South that benefited from slavery, and it made tons of millionaires of free labor and exporting cotton. But this was something that the whole United States was benefited from. So even if you were in the North as a business person, and you didn't have slaves on your plantation, but you had you profited from it. You're selling slave life insurance policies. You're doing all sorts of other things. So this came to my mind because the other day I was I was thinking about like what would my last name have been, right? If
X.
Now I'm talking way before then. Like if Mr. Walters,
whatever your slave master's last name was your last name.
Yeah. So I said, if slave master Walters didn't come and own my people, what would my last name have been? You know what I mean? So I was thinking that's what got me thinking about slavery to begin with. And a cousin of mine linked me up and showed me some documents about like when the first people in our family came from Ghana, right? So I was thinking about that, and so I came across an article, I think it was in the Guardian in London, where they're talking about all these British companies that well-known British companies, Lloyd's of London and Bank of England, benefited majorly from the slave trade. So I wanted to find out, similarly within the U.S., which companies that we know benefited majorly from the slave trade, and what responsibility do they have today, that can never make right. But so here are a few, like New York Life, our insurance company. They sold slaveholder policies in the 1800s. It's still in existence today. Tiffany and Company, they were originally financed from profits from a cotton mill, from the slave trade. Aetna, everybody knows Aetna. They insure the lives of slaves.
Sure, yeah.
Brothers,
I remember that.
You know what I mean?
How about any company that has any kind of relationship with prison systems? That's today.
But the thing is, so that something like the prison system, that's direct, right? But so we think about their companies. I want to list off all of them, like J.P. Morgan, AIG, USA
I was about
Today,
to,
Bank of America. They all benefited from that industry. So let me just ask the question. So slavery was an institution that made the U.S. the economic power that it is today. Many people benefited off that. Many companies that are still in existence today by the overall system that didn't happen just at the governmental policy level. People benefited from that. So when we talk about like reparations and that sort of thing, it's more mainly talk about what responsibility does the government have, but beyond that, what company does industry have? What responsibility does industry have? They benefited majorly. They made millions, billions, and pass it down to their people, and put their people in power and what have you. So what responsibility does U.S. industry have today in trying to make right based on the sins of their forefathers? So that's the long ass question.
Woo! So I'll start. So first I want to say capitalism today basically was born on the back and the blood, sweat, and tears of slavery. If you think about, I'm going to say a large majority of the financial institutions that you just named, Bank of America, Chase, and all these people, all had direct impact on slavery, and it carries over to today. Now, the thing is, I do believe all these companies do have, they do have a responsibility, but how do you quantify it is the problem. How do you put a price on it? You can, so I think, let me see, I read the other day, everybody knows about 40 acres and a mule, okay? And
you don't need no mule.
That's why people today talk about reparations.
40 acres in a band.
So, or what they say, make Cadillac the #1 dealership in America. They say that, let's see, 40 acres and a mule today would actually equal $6.4 trillion. Okay. That would be roughly $150,000 per Black person today. Right now, today, that's what it would equal. So, yeah, you'll take, but is that enough? I mean, if you think about the things that they went through, I mean,
absolutely
families
not.
were separated.
Absolutely
children
not.
were taken away from their family.
Women
So
were
it's how do
raped.
you put a price on it? Now, I do believe they owe us something, but again, how do you quantify it? And the companies that actually benefited from it, for example, I think Lehman Brothers, I think it was in 2008, they folded up, but they were a big contributor to finances during the slavery times. And it just so happened in 2008, I think it was during the mortgage financial crisis, when they folded because they were giving out, bad loans or what may have you. But again, it's just kind of hard to quantify what we would receive or what the responsibility is.
It will never be enough, ever.
I agree.
Something, yes. But I think I'm gonna get back to what C-Dub was saying about these companies and how can they, what responsibility would they have or should they have today, investing in HBCUs, allowing opportunities for minority employees, and promotions for minority employees, investing in Black-owned businesses. I mean, especially, companies like banks and of that nature. I think JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America was one of them. Aetna, horrible insurance. God,
hey, we may need a sponsorship from Aetna, so anyway.
Oh, I know. I actually have Aetna. Sorry, guys. Thank you for maybe some kind of increase in medical insurance, something. I mean, there are multiplicity of ways where you can invest back into our communities, and I think, maybe they should consider those type of things, because those are actually realistic things and practical things that they can do today in today's time.
Right. I agree with you fully. Not only is it pretty much impossible to quantify how much would each person get. I don't think that would be the most beneficial way of doing it. I agree that it should take on at an institutional level, right? Because I mean, a lot of people think that it was the slavery, and then slavery ended, and then since 1865, then we're good to keep. But
everything was all good.
Systemic policies ever since to try and keep us back, keep us in our place. These systems were set up, so. So I think it should look like, investing in HBCUs, investing in
scholarships,
Black communities, and scholarships. Exactly. Those sorts of things, my scholarships, and, investing in businesses, contracts for Black-owned businesses. What do you say?
The quota, getting a whole bunch of us in there.
A lot of them do those sort of things, but it's just enough to keep us off their backs, to say, "Hey, see, I did this. We're not."
Yeah,
I have Black friends.
Exactly. I think it should be basically. I think it should be mandated, right? I don't think it should be just because we feel like doing it, right? I think there should be a tax. Of all companies, of a certain age, whatever. However you go to determine fits in that bracket, where this is going to be mandatory for you to pay, because it is the whole institution of the United States that created these systems that benefited you, and against the interests of millions of people. And because of that, yes, you'll never be able to completely make it right, but you have to pay this tax, and we're going to use this money to try and better these communities. You know what I mean? So I think things like that have to happen. So I think we all agree that they do have a responsibility. How you quantify how much it is, I don't know. That those things can be negotiated. But Bank of America, Wachovia, AIG, USA Today, Brooks Brothers, a lot of these companies that we all know and support. I have a Bank of America account right now. You know what I mean? So
Bank of America
companies that we all support on a daily basis. We didn't even know that, I certainly did not know about Bank of America. So you'll hear a lot of pushback from, a lot of people, a lot of white people today who say that, hey, I wasn't involved in slavery. No, I'm not saying that you personally are responsible, but you benefited from it. You benefited from the institution, and other people were hurt by it. Therefore, you have a responsibility. You being a citizen of the United States who benefited from this, you have a responsibility to do right. So, I think that's important to understand. Slavery was obviously, we know, a horrible thing, but it didn't just all end at slavery. I don't know if you all have seen the Netflix series
13
Black AF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
I think it's hilarious too. But so at the beginning of all episodes, they say what it's about. It's always something about slavery. Because there's so many things, because of slavery. So many things that we don't even, we can't exactly quantify, but we can trace back to that history. And, you know, because of that, people benefited from it and people suffered from it. You know, I have to make it right, you know, as much as,
Once again,
and try as much as
you guessed
as
it,
possible.
it's because of slavery.
Like final thought, you know, just a minute or something on something that you want to say. I don't care what it is. It could be about life. It could be a scripture.
Just while hey, I see that hand. Hey, goddaughter.
Yes. That's Cinderella's. Yes, hey.
While we're talking about it, and we're talking about all these banking institutions and where we have our money, we need to invest in black banks. I mean, pure and simple. You know, all these companies benefited off of, you know, blood, sweat, and tears of slavery. They're not doing enough, you know, to give back. We need to bring our money to institutions with people like us. I mean, black-owned businesses.
And if you don't know where to find black-owned businesses, Black Book Houston lists all the black businesses in Houston, Texas.
Black Book Houston. Matter of fact, Blade has been trying to get us to open a bank account. There's a black bank in our area, so we need to definitely do that.
Is that blackbookhouston.com?
Their IG page. Let me see. I know their IG.
Black Book Houston.
Black Book Houston. It is.
Okay.
Let me find it for you. Let me get it.
We'll post that. All right. So.
It's Black Book Houston. They have a link tree. Right. But this is their page. Black Book Houston on IG. Black Book Houston on IG. Just go there.
Black Book Houston. I think those are very good final thoughts as we kind of reflect, as you know, when we look at all of the things going on in our society, you know, regarding, you know, police brutality. If we trace the trail of that, you know, going back to slave patrols, going back to, you know, keeping these newly freed slaves in line, you know, don't invest in our communities so that there's poverty, make our schools, you know, suffer so that people don't have opportunity, and then crime comes out of that. So sending the police to deal with those situations. You know, these are all the legacies of slavery. So what we need to do as a people is some of the things y'all were talking about. Invest in our communities, support black-owned businesses, support black banks, be involved in our school boards. So those are the type of things that we're going to have to do as, you know, we realize, you know, where we live and what we have to do in order to advance in the society. Hey, these are the cards that we're dealt. We have to, you know, make lemonade, you know, with vodka from
the vodka. Ray nephew.
No.
Appleton.
Oh.
Whoa.
All right. So those are our final thoughts. Just Reasoning, a My Soul River production. Jazzy, or Golden, whatever your name. We appreciate you on last minute notice coming and blessing the family.
Sure do.
You know, with your
and
intellect,
for life, gang,
and with your light. You know, so we appreciate that. So,
appreciate
for everyone who tuned in.
And I got on my Reggae Rebel shirt, FYI.
What is that?
Reggae Rebel shirt.
Okay, big up yourself.
I made it into a workout shirt, but don't mind me.
Yes, we won't. Friends and family, until next time, this is Silica Hand. Hi, Sydney Rose. That's my little daughter's hand saying hi. You can't see our face, but those are our little fingers. Until next week, next Wednesdays at 9 p.m., Just Reasoning. So look us up on Facebook.com/MySoulRebel. On YouTube, also My Soul Rebel. And, you know, we'll slice this up and, you know, put it up on the web for you to share with friends as we make Just Reasoning. We want to amplify the voice of our community. So tell somebody about this, share it, whatever you want us to discuss, talk about, people you want to have on the show. Link us up and we'll go from there. So thanks for tuning in. My family, bless up. One love.
Love next week.